And good morning, everybody. So let me move on a slide. As Andrew said, I'm here to talk about some of the research that we've done, very fresh research, to the point I only got the slides yesterday, that we've done with Access Group across multiple countries, but I'm going to focus more on the UK and Ireland today. I'm talking about what that data tells us from a tech and AI perspective, and also a little bit about the market as a whole at the moment. Just to briefly introduce CGA and what we do. We were acquired by NIQ about 3 years ago, largest global market research business in the world. But at CGA, we have an always focus on hospitality. So we're the leading data and insight business for the hospitality sector, providing data across a whole range of different aspects, whether that's tracking every site, every opening, closure, the attributes of those sites, whether it's sales. So we have over 120 leading operators that share their sales information with us. That's the real benchmark for how the sector's performing, and sentiment. So consumer sentiment. So we survey around 50,000 consumers in the UK alone, all about eating and drinking out, why they go out, what their drivers are. And leaders, we do quarter leader surveys, understanding the challenges and the opportunities that they see within the sector. And we also do the surveys for all the major trade bodies as well. So we have quite a rounded view on what's going on in the sector. And I'm going to kind of start with that, as I say, how we see the market, but also the role of tech within that. And it's already been alluded to the fact that the market isn't easy out there at the moment. Tracking the size and shape of the market as we have done over the years, the number of venues has been climbing steadily. We've got 1 in 5 less than we had in 2012. I joined the sector around 25 years ago. There's around 145,000 licensed premises. So that number has been dropping. We saw a kind of accelerated rate of closure. This is net, so it's taking account of both openings and closures. Net numbers accelerated sort of COVID and post-COVID with the war in Ukraine and the energy shock that happened. If you're looking for some kind of encouragement, the line has flattened a little bit. So the last few years, we're still seeing closures, but the rate of closure has declined. Hopefully, obviously, we're all hoping for more support in the budget, as has already been mentioned. If we look year on year now, from our latest report, which is to the end of September, we lost 0.6% of venues, so still not ideal. We don't want to be a shrinking sector. But actually, quarter on quarter, we did see some growth. The numbers were up slightly, and we haven't sort of banged that drum too loudly with the budget pending. Because clearly there's a need for more support, but there's been some growth in things like restaurant numbers and casual dining numbers. So hopefully we are seeing the market sort of flatten out a little bit. From a sentiment perspective amongst leaders, it's not too bad. The orange line is sentiment in own businesses. So this tends to be senior leaders of larger businesses. So they're telling us that their optimism levels for the next 12 months is not too bad. It's kind of ticked up the last couple of quarters. People have kind of absorbed the challenge that NIC increased in particular have led. They maybe had to readjust their business slightly, but now taking that 12-month horizon, have a reasonable amount of confidence. We're still below the only sort of normal period we could possibly look at on this chart, which is between the Brexit referendum and the first lockdown. So we're not going to get too carried away by that optimism level. The other notable thing is optimism in the general market is considerably lower. So this is people looking at the wider sector, and that's kind of chimes with the trade body surveys we do, where it's particularly tough for independents who have limited cash reserves, and that's where we have been losing venues, sadly. From a sales perspective, I alluded to this being the kind of benchmark for how the sector's performing. So we have over 120 leading pub, bar, restaurant groups that feed into this. They share with us their like-for-like sales. This is seen as the kind of true measure. This is that pink line. So how is that same site trading this year versus last year? What you can see is largely been in positive territory, but again, marginally. The last few months, it's been fairly flat. And below this dotted line, which is the general rate of inflation, CPI. So in real terms, it's nothing to get too excited about, but sales are fairly flat. Total sales are a little bit higher, so this is driven partly by new openings. The managed sector is the sector that has been growing, if any. So that's kind of how we see the sales performance. Fairly flat, as I say, from an outlet perspective, fairly flat. The massive challenge, of course, has been decreasing profit levels. P&Ls have been squeezed massively. We've seen, if we look a couple of years ago, the percentage of businesses reporting greater profit was at 55%. That's now dropped to just over 1 in 4. And conversely, those businesses reporting decreasing profit has increased from 17% to 37%. And those lines obviously crossed around a year ago. So Clearly within there's always outliers. There's some businesses that are performing pretty well. Some are performing, are reporting greater profits. There is a kind of polarization of performance, but net terms, we can see more people are getting their P&L squeezed. And from a tech, and obviously tech, big topic today, particularly around AI, worth reminding though that actually that was the number one area that leaders said they wanted to focus their investment of for 2025. That's when they wanted to increase their investment, recognizing it can drive efficiencies, but also it can drive increased customer experience. And I'll talk a little bit about the specific research we've done with Access Group in a while, but this is a couple of quotes from it around tech specifically. Quite like this one, which is a GM in Birmingham talking about text everywhere. It's really though about understanding how it can really improve your business. Clearly that's the challenge. How can we use it effectively? And a hotel manager talking about more agility, systems being more agile, and that's their kind of nirvana. Interestingly, and this is a question we've asked in various forms over the year, but from the research here, around 400 people that we surveyed in the UK and Ireland, 28% thought they were getting great value and use out of their current tech. So nearly 3 in 4 seeing room for improvement. To be fair, 41% think they're using it fairly well, but certainly area for improvement. And I think that's understandable, given tech is so fast-paced. There's a lot of change going on in the sector continually. So to say, onto the research, I'm only going to focus on the UK and Ireland stuff, but as has been alluded to, we surveyed well over 1,000 people across multiple markets. These were senior leaders in the sector, both on the tech side, GMs, etc. We also did more qual deep dives as well to really understand a bit more sort of behind the curtain of what people were thinking and why they were thinking that. And I know Access Group, and I'll talk a little bit about it, did some consumer research as well, but also gives a kind of rounded view on what's going on. I won't focus too much on this slide, but just to highlight really that there's a split between F&B and hotels, and I'll pick out some of the differences between there because there are some subtle differences. From an F&B side, it was more food-led, and hotel-wise, we're kind of 3-star and above really was the focus. And you can see the roles there, but generally, as I said, senior leaders in those sectors, whether it be GMs, owners, team leaders, head of ops, CEO, etc. So people that have the finger on the pulse and really know their businesses. So this next section is about the importance of technology and the sort of support that those operators are saying they need. This slide, on the one hand, there's quite a lot of consistency. I think that's quite interesting here, is the consistency of the responses here. So the question was, how significant are the following operational challenges for your venue? And across the sample of around 400, whether it was forecasting and revenue optimization, staff and operational efficiency, stock and inventory control, guest management experience. As I say, quite consistent answers, sort of between 14 and 20% saying it's not a challenge, kind of around 10, 12% saying it's a significant challenge, most in that minor to moderate challenge. But really across all of those, there's a range of operational challenges, and this is beyond the kind of the financial challenges I talked about earlier. When we kind of go into the detail between F&B and hotels, I'm happy to share these slides. I realise there's quite a lot of detail on this one. But we kind of split between small and large businesses. What I wanted to highlight on here is the small businesses from an F&B side, kind of more tactical really. I guess they're thinking about how they trade day to day, week to week. So how do they use kind of marketing and advertising more effectively? How do they translate for international visitors? How do they handle incoming guest inquiries? Whereas the larger businesses thinking about more strategic long-term planning, about staff scheduling, how do they deal with guest complaints, provide real-time support. These are the things that we're over-indexing. And that was similar around hotels as well. When you saw particularly the larger hotel operators thinking about over-ordering of stock and the challenge that brings, real-time price optimization. So these more, I suppose, bigger challenges that people are facing. And when we asked about biggest priorities for working with a tech partner, the kind of shades of yellow were around help with long-term planning around tech, someone who understands hospitality operations, not just a tech provider. So I guess someone who's invested in the sector understands about hospitality is not just tech for tech's sake, and even looking at kind of third strategic guidance rather than just selling us more tech. So a genuine partnership that people are looking for, perhaps some hand-holding thought leadership through, say, what is quite a complex area. And here's some of the write-ins from the qual interviews we do, asking about what they look for in a tech partner, and again, this kind of integrated system. Again, when we've done this research over a number of years, tech not being able to talk to each other, lack of integration and ability to use it comes up consistently. Obviously music to Access here is that someone's able to cater for the entire business, overall package. Can we get that all in one place? And the next bit, obviously within businesses, and you'll know this if you I know many of you in the room are clearly from operators, there's a lot of operational complexity. There's a lot of challenges around system integration, and these numbers were considerably higher when everyone was sitting down earlier at the start. But on average, F&B telling us they use 4 different systems providers. Hotels slightly more, at around 5. There was obviously people in the room at 10. So the point really is there are a lot of different systems. They need to talk to each other, and also people need to know how to use them. Just literally switching between systems, making kind of manual conditioning of data, this takes time, and there's direct correlation. The more systems you have, if you've got over 10 systems, it takes a heck of a lot more time. And again, this came up clearly in the survey, and this kind of from the call interview from the Deputy Ops Director in the Northwest, talking about the fact that if senior managers are spending 60% of their time doing transactional work, that's not a productive use of their time. So can AI take away some of that pain and allow them to spend their time in more productive areas? And the other challenge in the sector is one of fairly high staff turnover. We have quite a transient workforce in the sector. It's kind of always been thus, with seasonal workers, with students and people picking up shifts at different times. It's one of the exciting things about the sector. People can start their career and build their careers in the sector that way. But that high staff turnover means that it's a huge challenge in getting people to use the system. If you've got someone that's there for a month, 3 months, train them up, and then they move on, you've got to start that cycle all over again. So, these issues around seasonal staffs, high staff turnover, and training across multiple systems came up really, really strongly. And from the UK research, 91% strongly agreeing that integrated technology could help scale the business. So if we get this right for 1 or 2 operators sites, you might be able to get away with a kind of patchwork quilt of tech. But as you want to scale, it's a real enabler if you can get that integrated tech right to scale the business. So, and it also from a connectivity perspective, there's an opportunity cost as well. So 99%, I'm surprised it's not 100, but there's always somebody that feels differently, which is fair enough. Saying that unconnected services are costing their business money. And we asked KDMs or key decision makers to estimate this, and it came out around 13% of OPEX costs being lost through just systems not talking to each other, training of staff, unconnectivity. So there's clearly an opportunity to get it right when you're scaling, but there's an opportunity cost that you're losing by not getting it right. And again, looking in a bit more detail about the main benefits of integration, some consistency between F&B and hotels. So you can see things like saving time on daily admin tasks. They come in slightly different order of priority, but some consistency. The one anomaly was for hotels, where the number 1 was actually reducing double entries. As you think about the complexity of a hotel business, we already mentioned they tend to have more platforms in them and systems already, but also you've got rooms, you've got restaurant, you've got bar. So having all those systems and booking systems all talk to each other, a massive challenge. But again, a range of wins that integration can provide. And I know, speaking to the team, this was a slide that took a long time to build, because we asked a free sort of write-in question about what are the main issues and gaps with the data that you're receiving, and they kind of categorized into a whole range of things, from not getting the data right, data source being scattered, means poor system reliability. It can lead to time delays, difficult integration. I kind of started as an analyst, and there was always that adage, if there's crap in, there's crap out. So how do you get the data right consistently? And it's clearly a challenge, because when we asked about that from a key decision maker perspective, only 1 in 3 felt very confident about the data they're receiving. So you don't have to be a mathematician. 2/3 of people saying that there's a challenge there and definite room for improvement. And on the bar chart here, we were asking about the benefits of real-time consolidated data across the business. Pretty much everyone said it'd be a benefit. Nearly half said it would definitely help, especially during busy periods, to be able to make quick, accurate decisions. Nearly 1 in 4 say it'd be an absolute game changer for how they run the business. The final section I just wanted to talk about was really to focus on the AI aspects of the research that we did and the potential role for AI in hospitality. So whether that be robots was mentioned earlier, but actually more about how it really leans into some of the operational challenges. So again, pretty much everyone saying that they're looking to automate some operational aspects of their business and looking for support with these challenges. In terms of which the key areas, the top two, as you can see, for a priority perspective for automating processes were customer service and bookings, and this over-indexed slightly for hotels, inventory management and ordering from an F&B perspective, but then also things like marketing and customer insights, financial reporting. So a lot of things that AI could play a role in automating as long as you've got that accurate data coming in. And when we're asking about where we think it could help most, what was actually noticeable for me is there's a lot of different areas, but actually the percentages don't differ massively. So yes, number one, improving efficiencies. Number two, streamline bookings, but you've got growing profit, helping with routine tasks, helping with staff shortages. So I think there's a recognition that AI can help across a lot of areas. I think there's still an element of people kind of working out where the biggest bang for their buck is and where they can get most return. And I think that comes out here at the bottom. We've got just over 1 in 4 saying they're still figuring out where it fits best. We're all on a kind of learning curve with that journey. Less than 1 in 5 saying it probably won't be a factor in their operations. I'd probably disagree, but that's what they said. But I do think, again, that talks to the fact that it's new. People are still thinking there's a benefit, but trying to work it out. And speaking to a couple of people just before, I think, and it came up in a recent market dinner that we had, it's often 1 or 2 individuals that are driving it within a business, thinking about how they can use it effectively, trying different things, rather than kind of corporate mandates that are coming down. I think there's still some adjustment that's happening there. Certainly speak for our business. Sorry to bang the microphone. From the consumer research that Access did, the number one functionality that consumers are looking for AI was around the typical pain points: faster booking, order payment, so being able to kind of make those as smooth and as quick as possible to enhance the consumer experience. And businesses looking for AI to save money, estimation here that around 18% of operational costs could be saved by implementing AI. So again, a huge benefit. I'm not going to read what the deputy ops director said there, but you're certainly talking about the time that can be won back, but also about being able to use that time to focus on the human element of hospitality. And it goes beyond cost savings though. So when we asked about main expectation for implementing AI, yes, cost reduction came up, but it was actually only 14% were focusing on it for that. It was actually thinking about better decision making through accurate data, improved customer experience. So it's quite nice that yes, there's a cost saving, but that people are really thinking about how it can enhance their business, their ability to make decisions, their ability to serve customers better. And there's definitely concerns around the use of AI. So people are, I think, understandably concerned about loading up sensitive customer data into an AI platform and where that goes. So nearly half talking about that concern and how that leads into concerns about data security and privacy. From a consumer perspective through the research, that also came up. 92% of consumers had some concerns over AI and how it could be used in hospitality. Actually, privacy and data was a bit lower, around 28%. The biggest ones are actually people related. So people having empathy that there might be job losses for hospitality workers. Again, most of us will know people in hospitality, or we go into venues and enjoy the interactions we have with those people there. So again, loss of human connection and personal touch. So absolutely crystal clear from consumers that they don't want to lose the real heart of hospitality. And this again came up in the qual stuff from people, from operators. Get that, they're not daft to this. Overuse of AI can distance yourself from that connection with the consumer. And the whole point of hospitality is to make people feel at home. That reason to get them off the sofa is very much about the social dynamics that hospitality delivers. And just kind of leaning back to expectations from a tech provider, this was quite consistent with what I spoke about earlier. This is specifically around AI, but people looking for training and support, assistance with integration, less about the kind of pricing and kind of sales statements, which I think again is encouraging. People are really focused on looking for that partner that can help them through this, and it's not just about necessarily the cheapest provider. It's how it can really find benefits and how people can help them unlock those benefits. As I said, it's still a new area. And final, to sum up, is that consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for this. So 1 in 3 from the consumer research centre would be willing to pay in the range of 8 to 10% if it enhances their experience, whether that be guaranteed faster service, it might be around check-in or reduced wait time in the restaurant, taking away some of those sort of pain points that people talk about. I think even when people aren't prepared to pay more, if you get it wrong, definitely puts people off coming back. So massive area, I think, for improvement. And I think I said to Rosie, she wouldn't mind me talking about this, but from when she was at Hall and Woodhouse, they used voice for people being able to book tables, book rooms, and really good use of AI in a kind of regional pubco. We've all had that scenario where we're trying to book a table and the phone just rings off behind the bar. So I think a good example of it being used well in an area, regional pubcos, which you might not think are the most forward thinking. So kudos to Rosie and Hall and Woodhouse. Just to summarise then, before I hand back to Andrew, I think I talked about the market at a top line level. It is a fairly flat market. It's not easy out there, but maybe flat's good given what we've seen in previous years. Cost pressures are there though, absolutely, and I think there's clearly a need to get that additional support for government. When operators look at their own business beyond what they might get in terms of support, efficiency is obviously a clear area of focus, and tech is a big enabler here. It's the number one area of increased investment, and it can obviously help with that. There are undoubted challenges over staff churn that I mentioned about, and therefore there's a desire for integrated systems, because working across multiple systems is a challenge from a people's perspective. When we talk about AI specifically, absolutely recognise the big opportunity. I think people are still working out exactly where it fits best to enhance their business. There are concerns, of course, with it, so I think people are using it cautiously. And as I say, it's a personal view of mine, but I think there's still kind of businesses where it's not kind of coming down from the top. I think people are kind of working it out as they go along. So I think there's still a lot of sort of clear path to go to unlock some of those opportunities. And I think that this final one, I think it's a nice one really, is that we always need that human interaction. So I think tech and AI can be a massive enabler. They can help drive efficiencies, and they can enhance the customer experience, but it is about people. So it's about then being able to put people in front of consumers to deliver that great experience that we all enjoy.